Imagine a time when the government wanted to erase your home, your identity, your history. How would you fight back? Welcome to the world of the Night Watchman, a story inspired by true events, written by the brilliant Louise Erdrich. This novel takes us to the 1950s, where a man named Thomas Wazhashk, a Chippewa night watchman, works long hours guarding a factory, but his real battle is not at work. It's against a law that threatens to take away his tribe's land and identity. With determination and courage, he steps forward to protect his people. Alongside Thomas, we meet a young woman named Patrice Parenteau, who dreams of a better life, but her journey is filled with struggles, mysteries, and unexpected dangers. It all starts in a quiet factory in North Dakota, deep in the Turtle Mountain Reservation. The air is filled with the hum of machines, and the night is cold and still. This is where Thomas Wazhashk works as a night watchman. Thomas is not just a watchman. He is a leader, a thinker, and a man carrying the weight of his people's future on his shoulders. By day, he is a council member, reading and writing letters, trying to understand a new law that could end his tribe's recognition as Native Americans. This law, called termination, is a hidden threat disguised as progress. But Thomas is not fooled. He knows what this means. If the law passes, the Chippewa people will lose their land, their rights, and even their place in history. He cannot let that happen. As he guards the factory at night, he thinks about his ancestors, the stories passed down to him, and the responsibility he has now. The government believes they can erase his people with a simple law. But Thomas is ready to fight, even if he has to do it alone. Thomas Wazhashk works long nights as a watchman in the factory. His job is simple. He walks through the empty building, checks the doors, and listens to the machines that run without stopping. But while his body is in the factory, his mind is somewhere else. He is thinking about the letter he read earlier that day, a letter from the United States government. It says that the Turtle Mountain Chippewa people might no longer be recognized as a tribe. If that happens, they will lose their land, their rights, and their identity. Thomas knows what this means. The government is saying that the Chippewa people should no longer exist as a tribe. They will be forced to move to cities to live like other Americans. They will no longer have the right to their land, their community, or their way of life. This is called termination. And Thomas understands that it is a trick. The government wants to take away their land because it is valuable. They want to erase the tribe's existence, just like they have done to other Native American tribes before. But Thomas is not just a watchman. He is also a council member, a leader in his community. He cannot let this happen. He thinks about his people, the families who live in small houses, the old ones who remember the past, the children who do not yet understand what is coming. If they lose their tribe, where will they go? What will happen to their traditions, their language, their stories? Every night, as he walks through the factory, he makes a plan. He will not let the government take everything away. He will write letters, talk to other leaders, and find a way to fight back. But he knows it will not be easy. The government is powerful. The people in Washington, D.C., do not listen to small tribes like Turtle Mountain. Thomas wonders if anyone will help him, if anyone will even care. At home, his wife and children sleep while he works. He does not tell them how worried he is. He does not want to bring fear into their home. But he knows he must act soon. Every day the threat becomes stronger. Every day the government moves closer to taking everything away. Meanwhile, in the same community, a young woman named Patrice Parenteau has her own struggles. She is strong and determined, but life on the reservation is hard. She works at the factory too, but her mind is also filled with worries. Her older sister, Vera, left home some time ago, and no one has heard from her. Vera went to the city, hoping for a better life, but now she is missing. No letters, no phone calls, nothing. Patrice fears the worst. She decides she must go to the city to find her sister. She knows it is dangerous. A young native woman alone in a big city is not safe, but she cannot leave Vera out there, lost, with no one looking for her. As Patrice prepares for her journey, Thomas continues his fight. 2 different struggles, 2 different battles, but both are connected. The government's decision will affect everyone in their community, including Patrice, Vera, and their entire family. Thomas keeps thinking. He has never been to Washington, D.C. He has never fought against something this big. But he knows one thing. He cannot let the Chippewa people disappear. Even if he is just a night watchman, even if he is only one man, he will do everything he can to stop this. Patrice Parenteau knows she has no choice. Her sister Vera is missing, and no one else is looking for her. The city is dangerous, especially for a young native woman. But Patrice cannot just sit and wait. She does not trust the police to help. She does not trust the government to care. If she wants to find Vera, she must go herself. Patrice works at the factory, making money for her family. Her mother depends on her, and her alcoholic father spends whatever money he can get on drinking. She has always been responsible, careful, and hardworking. She does not take risks, but now she is about to step into the unknown. Before leaving, she prepares. She saves as much money as she can. She asks around, trying to find out where Vera might have gone. Some people say she was last seen in Minneapolis. Others say she was with a man. No one knows for sure. Patrice worries that Vera may have gotten into trouble, fallen into something dangerous. Women like Vera disappear all the time in the city. Some are taken, some are never found. When the day comes, Patrice gets on a train. She has never been this far from home before. As the train moves forward, she watches the trees, the rivers, the open land of her reservation disappear. She is entering a world that is not hers, a world where people do not understand her, where she is just another face in the crowd. Minneapolis is loud, fast, and full of strangers. The buildings are taller than anything she has ever seen. The streets are filled with cars. She feels small, lost, but she does not have time to be afraid. She must find Vera. She starts by looking in places where Vera might have gone. Cheap motels, bars, places where young women without much money end up. She asks questions, but no one gives her real answers. Some men look at her in a way that makes her feel unsafe. She keeps her guard up. Then, she meets a man who claims he knows Vera. He tells Patrice that Vera was seen with a rich man, someone who takes girls in, promises them a good life, but does not let them go. Patrice feels sick. She has heard these stories before. Young women get trapped, forced into things they never wanted. Some never escape. She does not know if this man is telling the truth, but she cannot ignore it. She must keep looking. She must find out what happened to Vera. Meanwhile, back home, Thomas is dealing with his own battle. He has been reading everything he can about the termination bill. The government wants to end federal recognition of native tribes, claiming that it will help them become more like other Americans. But Thomas knows the truth. This is just another way to take their land and erase their identity. Thomas cannot fight this alone. He begins writing letters, speaking with other tribal leaders, trying to gather support. Some people do not believe they can stop the government. Others are too tired of fighting. But Thomas refuses to give up. At night, as he walks through the factory, he thinks about his people. He thinks about the old ones who remember the time before reservations. He thinks about the young ones who do not yet understand what is at stake. If the government wins, the Turtle Mountain Chippewa will no longer exist as a recognized tribe. They will lose everything. Patrice is looking for her sister. Thomas is fighting for his people. Two battles, different but connected. One woman searching in the shadows of the city. One man standing against the power of the government. And neither of them knows what will happen next. Patrice walks through the streets of Minneapolis, feeling the weight of the city pressing down on her. The noise never stops. Cars rush past. People move quickly, and no one looks at her. Back home, she knew almost everyone. Here she is invisible, but she cannot think about that. She must focus. She must find Vera. She goes back to the man who claimed to know her sister. He sits in a bar, drinking, watching her with a lazy smile. She does not trust him, but he is her only lead. She asks him again, pressing him for more details. Where did he see Vera? Who was she with? What was she doing? The man leans in close, his breath thick with alcohol, and tells her about a club where rich men go, where girls like Vera sometimes end up. He does not say much else. Only that Vera might have been there, that she might not have been alone. Patrice feels cold inside. She has heard stories about places like this, places where women disappear. She does not know if she should believe this man, but she has no other clues. She leaves the bar and heads toward the part of the city where the club is supposed to be. When she finds it, the building is dark, hidden between taller ones. The entrance is guarded by a man in a suit, and the people going inside do not look like her. She knows she cannot just walk in, so she waits. Hours pass. She watches. She sees men in expensive clothes arrive, some alone, some with young women who do not look happy to be there. She sees the way they hesitate before going inside, the way their eyes dart around as if they are afraid. Then she sees something that makes her breath catch. A woman steps out of a car, guided by a man with a firm grip on her arm. Her hair is different. Her clothes are not the kind she would wear back home. But Patrice knows. It is Vera. She moves quickly, stepping forward before she even thinks about what she is doing. But before she can get close, the man pulls Vera inside, and the door shuts behind them. Patrice stands there, her heart pounding. She found her sister, but Vera is trapped. And now, Patrice has to figure out how to get her out. Back home, Thomas Wazhashk is dealing with his own kind of trap. The government's letter sits on his desk, heavy with meaning. He has been talking to other leaders, trying to get them to understand the danger. Some believe him. Others are tired of fighting. They have seen too many battles lost. But Thomas cannot let this go. If they do not stop this bill, their tribe will be erased. He writes letters. He speaks to anyone who will listen. He stays up late at night, working even after his shifts at the factory. His wife worries about him. She sees how tired he is, how much weight he carries. But Thomas does not stop. Then, one evening, he gets a reply. A senator in Washington has read his letter. He is willing to meet with Thomas, to listen to what he has to say. This is the first real chance Thomas has had. If he can convince this man, maybe he can convince others. Maybe he can stop the termination bill. But he also knows this will not be easy. The government has already made up its mind. They see the Turtle Mountain Chippewa as a problem to be solved, not a people to be respected. Thomas is just one man, one night watchman, one voice against an entire system. Still, he cannot back down. He will go to Washington if he has to. He will stand in front of the most powerful men in the country and tell them that his people will not disappear. In two different places, miles apart, Patrice and Thomas are both preparing for battles they never expected to fight. One is trying to save her sister. The other is trying to save his entire tribe. And neither of them knows what will happen next. Patrice stands outside the club, her heart pounding. Vera is inside, but she has no idea what condition her sister is in or if she is even allowed to leave. The men going in and out of the club look rich and powerful. They walk with confidence, their clothes clean and expensive. The women with them do not have the same confidence. Some look nervous. Some look empty, as if they have lost all hope. Patrice knows she cannot just walk through the front door. The man at the entrance would stop her before she could even step inside. She needs a plan. She needs to be smart. She watches the women who leave the club. Some of them are dressed in fine clothes, their hair done up in careful curls. Others look tired, their makeup smudged, their expressions blank. They get into cars, led away by men who do not care about them. Patrice follows one of these cars, staying close enough to see where it goes. The car stops outside a rundown building. The man gets out first, then pulls the woman out with him. She does not resist. She does not fight. She just follows him inside. Patrice waits a few minutes, then walks toward the building. She does not know what she is looking for, but she hopes she will find something, anything, that will help her get to Vera. The door is locked, but a side alley leads to a small window that is slightly open. Patrice climbs onto an old crate, pushing the window up just enough to see inside. The room is dimly lit, filled with cigarette smoke. Several women sit around, silent, staring at nothing. They look exhausted. A man stands nearby, talking on the phone. His voice is calm, like this is just another business deal. Patrice scans the room, hoping to see Vera, but her sister is not there. Still, she knows this place is connected to the club. Maybe Vera was here before. Maybe she will be brought here later. She climbs down and backs away, her mind racing. She needs help, but who will help her? She cannot go to the police. Native women go missing all the time, and no one cares. No one listens. If she tells them Vera is missing, they will shrug and move on. She thinks about going back home, telling her mother, telling someone in her community, but she cannot do that. Her mother is already broken from worry, and if she leaves now, Vera might be gone forever. So she does the only thing she can. She keeps looking. Back in Turtle Mountain, Thomas Wazhashk is facing his own challenge. The government's decision to terminate the tribe is moving forward. He has spoken with as many people as he can, written as many letters as possible. Now he has to take the next step. He gathers a group of tribal members. They must go to Washington, D.C. themselves. They must stand in front of the politicians and tell them what this decision means. But traveling to Washington is expensive. Most of the people in Turtle Mountain barely have enough money to get by. How will they afford the trip? Thomas speaks to the community. He explains why this is important, why they must do everything they can to stop termination. People listen. They may be tired, they may be struggling, but they understand. If they do nothing, they will lose everything. Slowly, they begin to gather what they can. They sell beadwork. They sell quilts. Some offer small donations, whatever they can spare. It is not much, but it is enough. Thomas and a small group of tribal members prepare to leave for Washington. They will travel by train, sleeping in their seats, eating cheap meals. It will be a long journey, but they have no choice. As Thomas steps onto the train, he thinks about the land he is leaving behind. He thinks about the old ones who still tell stories about their ancestors. He thinks about the young ones who will grow up not knowing what it was like to live as a recognized tribe if they fail. He looks out the window as the train begins to move, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. This is not just a trip. This is a fight for survival. 2 journeys, 2 battles. Patrice in the city, searching for her lost sister. Thomas on the train, heading toward the heart of the government's power. Both fighting against forces much bigger than themselves. Neither knowing what will happen next. Patrice does not sleep that night. She lies awake in the small, cheap room she rented, staring at the ceiling. Vera is close, somewhere in this city, but she feels farther away than ever. The club, the man in the bar, the women in the building. Everything points to something dark, something dangerous. She has never felt this alone before. In the morning, she makes a decision. She cannot do this on her own. She needs help, but who can she trust? The police will not listen. The people in the club will not talk. Then she remembers Wood Mountain. Back home, Wood Mountain was known for his strength. He was a boxer, tough and fearless, but he was also kind. He cared about his people. He had once looked at Patrice in a way that made her feel safe. She does not know if he will come, but she has no other choice. She finds a telephone and dials home. When her mother picks up, Patrice speaks quickly. She asks if Wood Mountain is there. A long silence. Then, her mother's voice. Hesitant. Why, Patrice? Patrice hesitates, then tells her mother the truth. Vera is missing. She is in trouble. She needs help. She does not tell her everything. Only enough for her mother to understand. Another silence. Then her mother says, "I'll send him." Patrice hangs up and waits. She does not know how long it will take for Wood Mountain to get here. She does not even know if he can help. But the weight on her chest feels a little lighter. She is not alone anymore. Meanwhile, Thomas Wazhashk is on the train, watching the world rush past the window. The journey to Washington is long. The seats uncomfortable. The other tribal members with him shift in their seats, some trying to sleep, others staring out the window, lost in thought. Thomas holds the letter from the senator in his hands. The man agreed to meet them, but what does that really mean? Will he listen? Will he care? Thomas has seen the way white politicians look at Native people. They nod, they smile, but they do not listen. He thinks of his ancestors. They had fought so hard to survive, to keep their land, their traditions. Now the government is trying to erase them again. They call it termination, as if they can simply decide that an entire people no longer exist. Thomas tightens his grip on the letter. No. They will not let that happen. Days pass. The train stops and starts again. They sleep sitting up, eat small meals of bread and dried meat. The money they gathered is barely enough to last. But they do not complain. They have all been through worse. When they finally reach Washington, the city feels like another world. The buildings are taller than anything Thomas has ever seen. The streets are wide, the air thick with the smell of smoke and automobiles. People rush past them, dressed in fine suits, carrying briefcases, looking important. Thomas and the others find a small hotel. It is not much, but it is a place to rest. They will meet with the senator tomorrow. They do not know what to expect. That night, Thomas cannot sleep. He steps outside, breathing in the city air. Somewhere in the distance, he hears laughter, the clinking of glasses. Life goes on here, unaware of the fight happening in Turtle Mountain. He thinks of his wife, his children, the people back home depending on him. He feels the weight of it all pressing down on him. But he also feels something else. Determination. Tomorrow they will speak. They will tell their story. They will make the government see them. Whether the politicians listen or not, they will know that the Turtle Mountain Chippewa will not disappear quietly. Two battles are about to begin. Patrice, waiting for help, planning to pull her sister out of the darkness. Thomas, standing on the edge of history, ready to fight for the survival of his people. Neither of them knows what tomorrow will bring. but both of them are ready to face it. Patrice waits at the train station, shifting from foot to foot. She scans the faces of the people stepping off the train, her heart pounding. She has not seen Wood Mountain in weeks, maybe months. What if he does not come? What if something happened on the way? Then she sees him. He is taller than she remembers, his shoulders broad, his stride steady. His eyes find hers, and he gives a small nod. He does not ask why she called. He does not need to. He knows Patrice would not have asked unless it was serious. They walk together in silence for a while. The streets are noisy, filled with cars and voices. Patrice leads him to her rented room, and when the door closes behind them, she finally speaks. "Vera is here," she says. "Somewhere. I know she is." Wood Mountain listens as she explains everything. What she has seen, what she has heard, what she suspects. He does not interrupt. When she is done, he takes a deep breath. "We have to be careful," he says. "These kinds of people don't let go easy." Patrice knows this. She knows the men running the club are dangerous. But she also knows they cannot leave without Vera. They make a plan. Patrice will try to find more information during the day, watching the club, listening to conversations. Wood Mountain will go out at night, looking for other places where the women might be taken. They will meet back at the room each evening, share what they learn, and move carefully. The next few days are exhausting. Patrice watches from a distance as the rich men enter the club, laughing, drinking, treating the women like objects. She follows some of the women after their shifts, watching where they go, who they meet. Some go to apartments, some to back alleys, some disappear into buildings with no signs. Wood Mountain does his own searching. He walks the dark streets, stepping into bars and listening to conversations. He sees things he wishes he had not seen. Women too young, men too cruel, deals being made with silent nods. He does not speak unless spoken to. He is careful, but he is also taking in every detail. One night, Wood Mountain comes back to the room later than usual. He looks tired, but his eyes are sharp. "I found something," he says. Patrice sits up, listening. "There's a man," Wood Mountain continues, "owns a few places around here. People say he controls everything, who goes in, who comes out. And Vera's name was mentioned." Patrice's breath catches. "Where?" Wood Mountain hesitates. "A place outside the city. Some kind of house. Not a club, not a bar. Something else." Patrice does not need him to explain. She understands. She stands. "We go tonight." Wood Mountain looks at her. "It's dangerous." "I don't care," Patrice says. "We don't have time." Wood Mountain nods. He understands. They leave the room, slipping into the night, moving toward something neither of them fully understands but both of them fear. Meanwhile, in Washington, Thomas Wazhashk stands outside the senator's office. The hallway is cold, the walls tall and white. The other tribal members stand beside him, their faces calm but tense. The secretary calls them in. They step inside, and there he is, the senator, a man in a crisp suit, sitting behind a wide desk, his eyes studying them with polite curiosity. Thomas clears his throat. He speaks. He tells the senator about Turtle Mountain, about the people, about what termination will mean. He speaks about history, about broken promises, about how his people have survived despite everything. The senator listens. He nods. He takes notes. When Thomas is done, there is silence. Then, the senator leans forward. "I will consider what you've said," he says, "but you must understand. These decisions are not easy. There are many factors to consider." Thomas knew this would happen. He knew the senator would be careful with his words, would not give them a straight answer, but he also knows they have done what they came here to do. They have spoken, they have been seen, and they will not stop fighting. As Thomas and the others leave the office, he feels a strange mix of hope and frustration. The fight is not over. It is just beginning. Back in the city, Patrice and Wood Mountain move through the dark streets, toward the house where Vera might be. They do not know what they will find, but they know they are running out of time. Patrice and Wood Mountain walk through the dark streets, their footsteps quick and quiet. The air is heavy with the smell of smoke and damp pavement. Streetlights cast long shadows, making everything feel even more uncertain. The address Wood Mountain heard about is on the edge of the city, far from the bright lights of downtown. The buildings here are older, forgotten. The roads are rough, filled with potholes. They reach a narrow alley that leads to a large, worn-down house. The windows are dark. A single porch light flickers. Patrice stops, her heart pounding. This could be it. Vera could be inside. Wood Mountain glances at her. "We go slow," he says. Patrice nods. They move forward, their steps careful. The porch creaks under their weight. Wood Mountain tests the doorknob. It is locked. He looks around, then gestures for Patrice to follow him around the side of the house. They find a back door. This one is slightly open. A cold breeze slips through the gap. Wood Mountain pushes it gently, and it swings open without a sound. Inside, the air smells stale. The hallway is dim, lit only by the streetlight shining through a window. They move forward, listening. A soft noise comes from upstairs. A voice? A shuffle? Patrice's stomach tightens. Wood Mountain steps first, his body tense. Ready. The wooden stairs creak as they climb. The sound of their own breathing is loud in their ears. At the top, they see a narrow hallway with doors on either side. Some are slightly open, others shut tight. Wood Mountain gestures toward one of the doors at the end. It is the only one with a faint glow of light beneath it. They move toward it, but before they reach it, a sound comes from behind them. A door creaks open. A man steps out. His shirt is wrinkled, his eyes heavy with sleep. He blinks at them, confused. Then his face changes. What the hell? Before he can finish, Wood Mountain moves fast. He pushes the man back into his room, pressing him against the wall. "Quiet," he says, his voice low. "We're not here for you." The man looks terrified. He nods quickly. Wood Mountain lets go, and the man stumbles back onto his bed. staring as they slip out and continue down the hall. At the last door, Patrice hesitates. She reaches out, turns the knob. It is unlocked. She pushes it open. Inside, the room is small. The walls are cracked, the floor covered with an old rug. A single lamp casts a dull yellow glow. And there, sitting on the edge of a thin mattress, is Vera. Her head is down, her hands in her lap. Her hair is unwashed, tangled. Her clothes are loose, as if she has lost weight. Vera, Patrice whispers. Vera's head jerks up. Her eyes are wide, unfocused. For a moment, she just stares. Then, her face crumbles. Patrice. Her voice is hoarse, barely more than a breath. Patrice rushes forward, kneeling in front of her. I'm here. I'm taking you home. Vera shakes her head, tears filling her eyes. You shouldn't be here. Wood Mountain steps inside, closing the door behind him. We need to go, he says. Vera looks at him, then back at Patrice. They won't let me. We won't ask, Wood Mountain says. Vera shudders. You don't understand. They. A noise downstairs. Heavy footsteps. Voices. Wood Mountain moves fast. He pulls Vera up. Can you walk? Vera nods, but she is weak. Patrice puts an arm around her, helping her stay steady. The voices downstairs grow louder. Someone is coming. Wood Mountain moves to the door, looking down the hallway. He curses under his breath. We have to go out the window, he says. Patrice looks at the small window in the corner of the room. They are on the second floor. It is not a long drop, but it is not safe either. But they have no choice. Wood Mountain pushes open the window. Cold air rushes in. Below, there is a pile of old crates and bags of trash. It is not perfect, but it will break the fall. Go first, he tells Patrice. Patrice helps Vera to the window. She is trembling, her body weak, but she understands. Patrice climbs through, gripping the frame. Then, she lets go. The fall is fast, jarring. She lands hard, rolling onto the ground. Pain shoots through her leg, but she ignores it. She scrambles up. Vera hesitates. Patrice looks up. Come on. Vera takes a deep breath, then lets herself drop. Patrice catches her as best as she can. They fall together, but they are safe. Wood Mountain follows right after. He lands with a grunt, then pulls them up. Move! They run. Behind them, voices shout. A door slams open. They do not stop. They do not look back. They disappear into the dark streets, running toward freedom. The night air is cold as Patrice, Vera, and Wood Mountain run through the empty streets. Their breath is heavy, their feet hitting the pavement fast. Behind them, they hear shouting. The men in the house have realized Vera is gone. They are chasing them. Patrice's heart pounds. She glances back. Shadows move under the street lights. The men are close, too close. Wood Mountain grabs her hand, pulling her forward. Faster, he says. We can't let them catch us. But Vera is struggling. She is weak, her legs shaking. Patrice tightens her grip on Vera's arm, helping her move. They turn into a narrow alley, hoping to lose their pursuers. The walls are high, covered in graffiti. Garbage bins line the path. The smell of rotting food fills the air. Wood Mountain stops suddenly, looking around. "We need a way out," he says. "We can't just keep running in the open." Patrice looks around desperately. There is a metal fire escape attached to one of the buildings. It leads to the rooftop. It is old and rusted, but it is their best chance. She points. "Up there." Wood Mountain nods. He helps Vera first, lifting her up so she can reach the ladder. Patrice pushes her from below. Vera struggles, but she pulls herself up. Patrice goes next, climbing fast. Her fingers grip the cold metal, her legs burning. Wood Mountain is last. He pulls himself up just as the men reach the alley. One of them shouts, "There they are!" The men rush forward. One jumps, trying to grab Wood Mountain's leg. He barely misses. Wood Mountain kicks at him, knocking him back. The man curses, falling into the trash below. Patrice helps Vera up the last few steps. The rooftop is flat, covered in gravel. The city stretches out before them, dark and quiet. Wood Mountain climbs up and looks around. "We can jump to the next building." The gap between the rooftops is small, but the drop below is dangerous. Vera shakes her head. "I can't." "You have to," Patrice says firmly. "We have no choice." Below, the men are shouting. They are trying to climb up. Wood Mountain takes a deep breath, then jumps first. He lands safely on the other side. "Come on," he calls. Patrice helps Vera to the edge. "You can do this." Vera hesitates. She is terrified, but she looks at Patrice, then at the men below. She takes a deep breath and jumps. She lands hard, falling to her knees, but Wood Mountain catches her before she can slip. Patrice jumps last. She stumbles but quickly regains her balance. They keep moving. They cross 2 more rooftops before finding a fire escape leading down to a back alley. Wood Mountain goes first, then helps the others. When they reach the ground, they run again. This time, they do not stop until they are far away from the house, the men, and the danger. Finally, they slow down. Their bodies are exhausted. Their breaths are ragged. They have escaped, but the night is not over. Vera collapses onto a bench, her whole body shaking. Patrice kneels beside her, brushing hair from her face. "You're safe now," she whispers. Vera looks at her, tears in her eyes. "I didn't think anyone would come for me." Patrice squeezes her hand. "We did." Wood Mountain stands watch, scanning the streets. "We can't stay here. They'll be looking for us." Patrice nods. They need to find a place to hide, a place where Vera can rest. The city is big, filled with strangers, but somewhere in this vast darkness, there is safety, and they will find it. As the first light of morning breaks over the city, Patrice, Vera, and Wood Mountain keep moving. They do not know exactly where they are going, but they know they cannot stop. The night has been long, filled with fear and exhaustion. But Vera is free. That is what matters most. They find shelter in a small, quiet place on the outskirts of the city. An old woman, kind and understanding, lets them stay in her tiny apartment. She does not ask questions. She sees Vera's tired face, the bruises on her arms, and simply nods. Rest, she says. You are safe here. Patrice helps Vera lie down. She is too weak to talk much. She holds Patrice's hand and whispers, "Thank you." Patrice does not reply. She just squeezes Vera's hand and lets her rest. Wood Mountain stands by the window, watching the streets. He is still alert, still ready to move if necessary. But for now they are hidden. Hours pass. Vera sleeps. Patrice watches over her. Deep in thought, she thinks about her mother, about her father, about the people back home who love Vera and do not even know yet that she has been saved. She thinks about Thomas Wazhashk, the Night Watchman, the man who has been fighting for all of them. Back on the reservation, Thomas is still pushing forward. The letter from Washington confirmed that a hearing will take place. The U.S. government is serious about their plan to terminate the tribe's rights. They want to take the land, cut off federal recognition, and force the people to leave. Thomas is tired. He has spent many nights at his desk, reading documents, writing letters, and planning his next move. He knows that traveling to Washington, D.C. will be difficult. It is expensive, and the government does not expect them to come. But Thomas is determined. He gathers a group of tribal members. Together they raise money, ask for donations, and do everything they can to prepare for the journey. It is their only chance to stand before Congress and prove that they exist, that their people are real, that their land and their way of life cannot be erased by the stroke of a pen. Back in the city, Vera wakes up. She looks around, confused for a moment, then remembers. She sits up slowly, wincing in pain. Patrice sits beside her. "You're okay?" she says. Vera nods, but her face is troubled. "I need to go home," she whispers. Patrice understands. They have been gone long enough. Their people need them just as much as they need their people. With Wood Mountain's help, they make plans to leave the city. The journey back to the reservation is not easy. They travel quietly, careful not to be seen. But finally, after many long days, they arrive. When they step onto the land, Vera takes a deep breath. The air smells of pine trees, of grass, of home. Patrice holds her arm, steadying her as they walk toward their mother's house. Their mother is outside, hanging laundry. When she sees them, she drops everything and runs. She wraps Vera in her arms, holding her tight, crying into her shoulder. "You came back," she whispers. Vera buries her face in her mother's neck. "I'm sorry," she says. "I thought I would never see you again." Their mother shakes her head. "You are home now. That is all that matters." The next day, Thomas calls a meeting. People gather in the community hall, listening as he explains what must be done. He tells them about the hearing in Washington, about the fight ahead. He reminds them that they are not just individuals. They are a tribe, a family, a people with history, strength, and rights. Vera, still weak but determined, stands up. She looks around at the people she grew up with, the faces she thought she might never see again. She knows now how much she almost lost. "We have to fight," she says, "for our land, for our home, for each other." There is silence. Then, one by one, people begin to nod. Some murmur in agreement. Others stand up, joining her. Thomas watches, pride in his eyes. He has spent years fighting alone in the quiet hours of the night. But now he is not alone. The people are ready to fight with him. A few weeks later, Thomas and a small group travel to Washington, D.C. They sit before Congress, facing men in suits who do not understand their way of life. But Thomas speaks with wisdom, with patience, with determination. He tells the government that the Turtle Mountain people are not going anywhere. It is not an easy battle. The politicians argue, they make excuses, they try to delay. But Thomas does not back down. He reminds them that treaties were signed, promises were made, and justice must be served. After many days, after many long meetings, a decision is made. The termination bill does not pass. The Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa Indians remains recognized. Their land is safe for now. When Thomas returns home, the people celebrate. They know the fight is not over, that there will always be more battles ahead. But tonight, they can rest knowing that their voices were heard. Patrice, Vera, and Wood Mountain stand together, watching the fire burn in the center of the village. Patrice looks at Vera, at the scars on her arms, at the quiet strength in her eyes. She has been through so much, but she is home now. Vera reaches for Patrice's hand, holding it tight. They do not speak, but they do not need to. They understand each other. Thomas watches the flames dance. He thinks about the long nights in the factory, about the letters, about the fight that seemed impossible. And he smiles, because in the darkness, there was always a light, a night watchman standing guard, refusing to let his people disappear. That's the end of the story. If you enjoyed the story, please like, share, and subscribe for more exciting tales. Check out our other videos and share your thoughts in the comments. Stay tuned for the next adventure. Thanks for watching.